YTBC, what's the deal? So I was looking at this weigh-in for Krzysztof Zimnoch versus Mike Mollo. Zimnoch weighs in at 220.4, and Mike Mollo, merciless Mike Mollo, weighed in at 242. It's funny because Zimnoch, for some of you that don't know, is Polish, and Mike Mollo has been in some of his most memorable fights against Polish fighters. The two fights with Artur Szpilka, I remember he knocked Szpilka down with a good left hand. That fight was on ESPN. Even the war he had, I forgot which pay-per-view was on, but even the war he had with Andrew Galata, some of you probably remember that. I believe that was like 2007, 2008, somewhere in there. But I remember that slugfest. He had swelled up Galata's eye. They were going back and forth. I thought it was a pretty close fight. They ended up giving the fight to Andrew Galata, but Mollo has had some very good fights against some Polish fighters. So I expect this to be the same thing about Mollo. We know he comes to fight, tough guy. But the one thing I was looking at with Mollo is he hasn't fought since 2013, the second fight with Artur Szpilka. So I'm curious to see where he is in his career. We look at the Polish heavyweights. We know of Tomasz Adamek. We know of Artur Szpilka, Mariusz Wach, Izzy Agano. Even another prospect I've been looking at. Who was the other guy? I forgot the other guy's name. Undefeated guy that I was looking at, Marcin Brzeski, I believe that was his name. But I'm gonna go with Krzysztof Zimnoch in this fight. And for those of you that don't know who he is, he actually owns a victory over Deontay Wilder in the amateurs. Gave him the business in the amateurs. I believe they fought in the amateur world championships that he beat Deontay Wilder in that fight. And then there's some footage on YouTube of him sparring Brian Jennings, and they were both giving each other some very good work. It wasn't like Jennings was in there beating this guy up. I mean, this dude showed tremendous hand speed, good footwork, shows the chin. His right hand, straight right hand, and that uppercut he throws, especially his uppercut, whether it's a right uppercut or left uppercut, he throws it so strong from both sides, and it's so quick. He has very fast hands. So I'm curious to see if this fight is uploaded to YouTube. But I think he's going to beat Mollo. Mollo's going to come to go to war. We know that's one thing about Mollo. He will come to go to war. Doesn't matter if he's outsized or outgunned. I've seen him in there with guys like Jamil McCline go to full 12 rounds. He knocked out Kevin McBride. So, I've seen him. I've seen some good and bad from Mollo. He isn't a world beater, but he is going to come in there tough. He has been in some title eliminators in his day. He will come tough and will come to fight. I will give him that. But I think he's overmatched in this case. Krzysztof Zimnoch is a very underrated fighter. Fighter some of you guys have never heard of. But amateur background, and he has the skill, I think, to just take Mollo apart. Mollo hasn't fought in about 2-3 years, man. So I didn't look it up. I'm curious to know if he's been injured or something, so I'm not sure. But Zimnoch isn't a young prospect. He is 32 years old. He turned pro in 2010. Extensive amateur background. That's the reasoning, and looking at him, 2014 he didn't fight, so I don't know if he was coming off injury or not. I'm still learning about him, but I have watched a handful of his fights. He also beat Oliver McCall, although a 2013 version of Oliver McCall, but still he's able to get the job done, and he was able to beat him. So that was impressive. He went the full 8 rounds. We know it's hard to knock out Oliver McCall, so he did knock him out, but we know it's extremely hard to knock out McCall, who has only been stopped one time in his 14 fights. And that was to Lennox Lewis, and that wasn't really a stoppage. We know what happened in that fight with Oliver McCall and Lennox Lewis, that second fight. So Mike Mollo will come to bang. He will come to go to war, but I think Zimnoch just has too much in his arsenal. The hands are quicker, the footwork's better, the defense better. Doesn't have as many miles, and just his outright skill is better, in my opinion. So I'm gonna go with Krzysztof Zimnoch in this fight. I've seen some fans say, hey, how about Zimnoch versus Szpilka? Shit, how about Zimnoch versus Izzy Agano if he gets past this fight? Now, that'd be a great fight that I want to see. You Polish fans, man, you Polish fans, you got some good fights over there if they happen and if they go down. But in this fight, I'm going to go with Zimnoch to knock Mollo out. Mollo is a tough guy, but I expect Zimnoch to get the victory. 7th, 8th round. You know, Zimnoch, like I said, he was off for a little bit in his career. Um, but he did come back and he had a good performance against Aluakan. And Aluakan is a guy, a European level guy, has been knocked out a few times, but Aluakan is hard to knock out. And for Zimnoch to be off for a while and come back and to knock off Aluakan, you know, the second round KO is pretty damn impressive. Because Aluakan's been in there, he's won the distance 10 rounds with Marius Watch. I've seen him in there with another prospect Ajik Kabayel, I've done a video on. Split decision. Aluakan probably could have won that fight. It was a good. That fight's on YouTube. Edmund Gerber, he pushed him to full 8 rounds. Erkin Tepper pushed him to full 8 rounds. You know, so he's not an easy guy to knock out, although he has been knocked out. Carlos Takam and some other guys have got rid of him, Glaskov. But I'm going to go with Krzysztof Zimnoch in this fight to win. I'm going to go probably 6th, 7th, 8th round stoppage. YTBC, I'm out.